the heart of the nation where laughter's the key. Natch has the podcast, join the revelry. Taking the Mickey with positive spin. Country folks unite, let the Nat Chat begin. Nat Chat where the laughter's free. Spinning tales about politics with positivity.
This week we are at the All Seasons in Bendigo for the Vic Nats State Conference, and I've got two young nationals, one who is also an MP, but we'll forget about that. You're here in your capacity as not the member for Euroa, you're a Young Nat. But first, Alex Scott, how are you?
Very good, very good. Pleased to be here.
Now, young Nats, some might be surprised to learn, or maybe not surprised to learn, up to the age of 35.
Yeah. So pretty sure every state around Australia except for Queensland is up to 35. So
what's Queensland?
They're down to 25, so unlucky for them.
Wow.
Yeah, unlucky.
Hey, they age out at 25.
I think the libs are the same.
Really?
Yeah, but I suppose in regional areas, you're still getting involved with things. You're still getting involved with the community into your late 20s, into your early 30s. It makes sense to still be involved in that side of the party.
Queensland just like to be different, let's be honest.
I feel like now's the time that you have to say how cheap it is to be a young Nat just while you're plugging
I was going to introduce you, Annabelle Cleland, member for Euroa and Young Nat yourself. You age out this year, so as to give away how old you are.
Oh, my. I was wondering if you were going to go there, so thank you.
Yep, straight away. Let's rip off the Band-Aid.
Yeah. Look, I still got cheap tickets to our state conference, so I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh, is that one of the benefits as well?
Everything's cheaper.
How much does it cost a Young Nat to come to conference?
It's half the price, and it's good to see these just down on their luck state MPs can take the cheap rate. Good
Alex, cost of living is hitting everyone hard, right?
Okay,
especially when you have families and stuff.
I get that.
There's actually a really good turnout at state conference this year, and I feel like without being rude, I feel like the age demographic is levelling out a bit. Like it used to be, I think, traditionally, or at least the perception was, I don't know if it ever was, but at least the perception was that, the average age was 80 plus. And now people like yourself, or both of you, there's a pretty strong Young Nats contingent here this year.
You've always been really proactive though, and vocal, sometimes irritating.
Yes.
But I love that. Like, I love there are so many policies or motions that you've put forward for debate and everyone stands behind them. And some of your pals, you go up against each other in friendly rivalry.
Yeah, and I think, there's not many opportunities that you have as a general person, but especially as a young person, to stand up in front of politicians and with them and say, hey, this is something that's important to me, something important to my community and my age group. What can we do about it? Here's a policy idea, and convince the room and convince the MPs that it's something we should support. So it's a pretty special opportunity we have once a year, and I think we, as Young Nats, we sort of fight above our weight a bit in that sense. There's been some really good debate so far today, and
maybe
some good
explain,
debate back and
if I'm jumping into your interviewing now, but explain, if someone who hasn't been to a state conference like this in a political party, explain what grassroots politics is and how you can have emotion and it kind of form our values or form our policy.
Yeah, well, I think everyone knows an issue they've got, whether it's a road needing to be sealed, or it's a bigger problem, or it's a policy idea, or it's a concept that they're going, I wonder if we could do this as a government or as a country or a state. And that's basically how these things start. So you have this idea of, maybe we could do this. And we chat within Young Nats and chat within our meetings and go, all right, let's come up with a motion that we can take to conference that can give either our state team or our federal team a bit of a platform to then go to, unfortunately, currently the Labor governments, but when we're in power, go to the departments and go, hey, this is something we want to do or fix. Let's move with it. So,
and this is the thing, right? People, as particularly young people, I talk to high school students all the time, for example, and they all want to change the world. Well, guess what? Protesting isn't actually the way to do that. Yeah. And I often ask people, well, if you want to change the world, have you joined a political party?
Yep.
9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Probably 9.5 times out of 10, the answer is no. Joining a political party, particularly one that is based in common sense, like the Nats, is, in my opinion, the best way to move forward. Because how do you make change, even if it's to do with the internal workings of the party that you might identify with the most, but there's a few things that could be tweaked. Well, get on the inside and change it. Like, put your money where your mouth is and sign up. Like, how much is it to become a Young Nat?
It's like $50. I think the first year is $10. It's even
I was going to say it's $10, isn't it?
And then $50 ongoing. And you think, federally got 151 members of parliament. State, it's what, 70 or so in state, I think? 88 members. So, you could have 100,000 people screaming out the front of Parliament House, and that's all well and good, but there's 88 people that make the decision on an issue. So,
and having a direct line to them is probably, in my humble opinion, the best way to go about that.
Exactly.
But I think maybe there's a fear of aligning yourself with a political party that you don't tick every box, which is what I think I love about state conference so much, because you have these motions that pop up, and I think you might assume how people will vote on certain things. And it's just not true. And I think that we always pride ourselves on that pragmatism of having solutions that benefit our community. But we talk about policy and like governance and some of those bigger topics, but so many of these motions are really about your back door, your local community, how you're going to improve your lives of your friends and your families and those you care about, or your region. That's what I always get really proud about the Nats, is that it's local politics at its heart.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, and that's one of our principles, isn't it? It's grassroots politics and it's democracy. Like, we do have a bit of a stoush internally, both at, party level, but also at membership level. State conference is great for that. I love the robust debate. And even if there's some motions that come up, I'm happy to second for the sake of debate, because I would hate to see someone walk out of conference not being able to debate an issue that they think is important.
Well,
I think it's a cliche. It's a cliche that as a party we're a broad church. And I think that, that is used a lot in negative context. But really, we're a party of people who all want to stand up for regional areas, for regional Australia, for regional Victoria. And in any group who want to stand up for an overarching idea, there's going to be differences of opinion. So you might be a bit more on the progressive side and want to do things. You might be a bit more on the conservative side. That's fine. We can negotiate around the weeds of a policy, but the basic premise is that we want to make our regional patches better. And all of our MPs, regardless of where they sit on any ideological spectrum, that's their main goal in Parliament. So
let's get personal, Alex. What was the issue that triggered you to get involved in politics?
So I actually grew up in foster care. So I was in foster care from the age of 10 until, I lived with my, who I see as my mum and dad, until I was 25 and moved out of home. And when I was younger, I was involved in a community organisation that was tasked by the then Labor government to review their changes to child foster care services and come up with any feedback and suggestions. And we came up with a few suggestions, one of them being that foster care should be able to sign some basic school forms for just, kids going to swimming that day. Foster care should be able to sign that rather than having to go through 5 or 6 hoops up and down the chain to get this ticked off. And it was something the government at the time said, yep, that's a great idea, and moved it. And it sort of showed me even at, in my early teens, like, oh, wow, you can actually do some things in politics. So that's why I sort of got involved and got involved in the Nats because I lived regionally. I moved up to central Queensland and I was working with some MPs up there and saw every day people coming in with, everything from a quite large problem with their business or problem with their family down to, Telstra had changed them over to a new internet connection and they lost their phone number. It doesn't, fixing problems in government doesn't always have to be the massive big problems. A lot of the time, the things that really annoy people are those small little things that just grind their gears. I can see day in day out that we can actually fix these problems and we can change them. So it's what I'm passionate about, is trying to make it better for people.
And this woman who's posing over our shoulder, JB.
Oh, because Gail's taking a photo, but I'm listening intently.
All of your angles are good, by the way.
Oh,
What about, I haven't heard your trigger to get into politics.
Yeah, but hang on, I've got questions to ask Alex, because two ears, one mouth. I like to use them in that order. So you were in long-term with the same family from the age of 10 to 25?
No, so I was with one family for about 3 and a bit years until I got into high school. And my foster mum, Liz, was amazing. She had been a foster carer for, I think, 20, 30 years and had dozens of kids go through.
Yeah.
I was the only boy in a house of girls, so they thought this probably isn't the grade I started going into teenagehood.
Yeah, okay.
And then I moved in sort of short term with another lady for about 6 months, and then with my people I see realistically as my mum and dad.
Yeah, right.
And from about middle of year 8 until 25, they moved back to South Australia to try and get away from me, and I followed them. And
I was going to say, because you age out of foster care at 18.
yeah,
right?
at 18. Well, and that was another thing that at the time when I was aging out, it was a big worry for me, because there wasn't any at the time there wasn't any support. Once you hit 18,
there's still not, and
no
this
support.
Well,
one of the things that they actually, we were able to chat with the department. They came up at the time. It was a special idea for me, but they've now gone and instigated this going forward. Is actually continuing those payments for foster carers until the child finishes school. So my birthday's in August, and not that my foster parents were going to do that, but they could have been well within their rights to go, hey, we're not getting any money for you.
Wow.
Catch a hike.
And that's often...
as I'm going into just going to my Year 12 exam. So we were able to get the department to change that policy and support me and my foster parents through until I finish Year 12. Which was amazing. It changed my life and changed it for the better. So
it's so remarkable that's a small part, a very significant part, but a small part of your life's journey. And here you are now as a young Nat, because that kind of story, I think, is stereotypically something we hear from the other side of politics. So it's remarkable. And this is what I mean, like the Nats is sort of all encompassing, just common sense people. Exactly. So I'd love to chat more about your whole journey another time and dedicate, because I find how people got to where they are completely fascinating. Yeah. I really do. Would you be willing to open up about that stuff?
Yeah,
sure.
it's been a
the senator walking past in a green jumpsuit. It's lovely. What was your trigger, Cleland?
I spoke about this in my maiden speech and cried.
I can't remember. That was 18 months ago.
The whole way through. But mine was my first son, Arthur, and I had our labour at a regional hospital. We're labouring in a regional hospital. And at the time, I think I believed it was about funding, a lack of funding by the government, but there was insufficient support for safe maternity care at the hospital I birthed at, and left us in a waiting room while we were labouring, and I couldn't get pain relief because it wasn't sterilised. And in the end, we had a surgical birth, not because we needed to, just because there wasn't really any other means that I could have a safe birth. And I was furious, because I felt like I was always a confident, I've always been a good advocate, I felt, for myself and what my needs or my family and goals were. And yet here I was just completely, what I felt was quite, a sense of abuse and neglect, and lacked human rights and basic care. So I wrote to the hospital 10 months after the birth, and that was kind of the start of what I didn't realise at the time, but certainly the start of my advocacy journey for my community, to say, I can speak when others might not be able to, and yet you took away my voice and my protection. So how do we stop this from happening again? And then that was probably that must have only been about 2 or 3 years before the election. And through that, I probably got really interested in our former member Steph Ryan's role as a community advocate, and started to lean on her to say, let's improve standards in this space. And it's just funny. I was thinking about this just last night, how that was my reason to get in. And here we're looking down the barrel of hospital mergers that are going to just axe more services out of regional Victoria. And we had a robust debate about that too, Alex, about different views on that issue. And I feel like I got into this role like hoping to fight for more. Like, this is what we've got. And the reward of this job is that you get to fight for your community and get more. But the reality has been the last 18 months has been a relentless slog to keep the very little that we've had.
Yeah.
And now, like you, like so many people in our party, is that you're not here for yourself, you're here for your family, your community, your children, your grandchildren one day. We had this great life in our community, and now we're just relentlessly trying to protect that. And they're gunning for it at such a pace that we never expect this, you know.
Yeah.
The cuts to health and stuff. So yeah, I'm deeply passionate about regional health, and never did I think the fight would be on our hands that we're faced with right now.
It's come on really quickly too. It's come on. You're right. It's come on a lot quicker than I anticipated it to.
So we should ask, what's yours, JB? Your trigger to get into politics?
Well, there wasn't just one. There was. I'd thought about local government for years beforehand, particularly when I moved. So I've moved around. I've lived all around the world, and whatever. Eventually, marrying a farmer. I always said I'd never marry a farmer.
How'd that go for you?
I mean, he's the greatest human that God's ever put breath into. But when I moved to be with him to, Boundary Bend at the time and then Robinvale, I just felt like that area in particular was being really underestimated and overlooked at every turn. And I was brought up not to whinge. I was brought up to, if something is not the way you want it to be, then here's Chester again. I really think he wants to take part. We'll get you on after when there's a microphone.
Darren Chester, you are not a young Nat. Keep walking, mate.
just a little bit not a young Nat anymore.
Yeah, so it started with that I was just not prepared to whinge about stuff if I wasn't prepared to do something about it. So when a position on our local council for my ward came up, I nominated. I was the only one, which really disappointed me because I wanted to fight.
JB likes to fight.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just kind of went.
Never.
It was, I've won a couple of titles in my past lives where I didn't get, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a Stephen Bradbury. I'm not. Anyway, I'd much rather have a fair fight and win rather than win by default. So I got into local government, and then COVID happened. Now, I was a small business owner in marketing, digital marketing, for 12 years, and then COVID happened. And part of my business plan was to not have any employees, would use freelancers, which I did. But the fact that I didn't employ anyone during COVID meant I got $0 in COVID support. And our representative at the time was voting with the government. She was an independent. She was voting with the government more often than not when she would turn up. So again, I wasn't going to whinge about it. I was mayor at the time, so have to have a working relationship with your local MP, you would hope. So I actually rang Steph Ryan after we were locked down with very little notice, and we had some things going on. I rang Steph Ryan and I said, we need to have a conversation about the state of politics in the northwest of the state because I am done. I was furious. And she rang me straight away and went, right, yeah, we do. Okay, let's, would you consider this? And then Peter Walsh rang me the next week. And I don't know if, obviously they'd had a conversation. Peter rang and he's like, you ever considered a career in politics? I said, I hadn't until last week. He said, well, have you ever considered the Nationals? I said, well, considering I've just paid my membership, Peter, you could say that, yes. He goes, wow, this is the easiest pitch phone call I've ever had in my life. So, and here we are.
One thing I am really proud of, and it stands out in the chambers, and I said this in one of our first dinners with the Nats once we were elected, is that we are chosen often as community people first, and life experience up there as well. Yep. And if your values are, reflect the broader party, excellent. But first and foremost, do you care about your community and prove your advocacy? And so we hit the ground running. And like your story, like my story, like everyone who's been elected, they've got this fire in their belly to fight for their community. And so, we've got a bit of a thing, stay in your lane, which is your community. But a part of that is that, politics is local. We know what we fight for because we go to the supermarket and by damn, our community will tell us if we're not,
Oh, absolutely.
behaving the right way.
Yeah.
And I love that connection.
Yeah, and that's the beauty, I think, of the Nats, especially being in small towns. Everyone knows who you are and you are held accountable every single time you walk out your door because you're dead right. If you're not doing a good job, you'll be told. But I think after the last couple of days, the Mildura Field Days, if people think you are doing a good job, they'll also tell you that.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. And I've had 2 days at the Mildura Field Days after the last sitting week, which were incredibly positive. And that's the first time I've really seen that. Even in local, especially in local government, because council gets blamed for everything. We know that. So, yeah, I think we're held a lot more accountable than our city counterparts, to be fair.
And a bit of an alarming stat, and I could be off a little bit here, but it's like currently in Victorian Assembly, 55 of 88 seats are held by people that have never had a job outside of politics.
I believe that. And look, it's across both Labor and Liberal, and there's often this perception that you get involved with youth politics, whether you're on the blue team or the red team, you get involved with youth politics at uni, you start working a day or two for some MP who's started off uni politics, and if you're in Labor, you fight the Tories. If you're in the Libs, you fight Labor because that's what you do, and you eventually just waltz into a job in Parliament House, and then waltz into the chamber and become a member. As someone who's a young Nat and someone who wants people to become young Nats, that's definitely a pathway. But I think our Parliament's worse off when it's not full of people who have some life experience. That's not saying that a 20-year-old can't have life experience. It's not saying that you have to be a certain age or have to have done a certain business. I would tend to argue that I've got a fair bit of life experience and I'm pretty young.
I reckon.
Annabelle, you're still a young Nat. And you've got
Jade's reminding me scraping in, but yeah,
like we've got life experience.
Yeah,
we don't have to wait until we're 50 or 60 to become an MP.
Yeah.
But the difference is that we, regardless of what our jobs are, outside of that 9 to 5, where our kids are going to local kinders and we go down to local IGA to shop and we go to local footy and we're involved in things in our community. So we just naturally hear things and see what's going on. And you start to pick up that. And some of the best MPs that I've seen and work with, they realise that they are not the government's voice in their patch. They're their patch's voice in government or in opposition.
Yeah.
And you can see that when we see it, Jay and I, gosh, how scripted the Labor government is. They do not waver from their speaking notes. And there was a really funny viral grab about someone saying, like, reading notes, dot points, and accidentally read the actual structure of the
wait for applause.
Yeah, wait for applause. Yeah, it was pause, and it was really funny. It was like, you're a robot. But is that what your community needs? But a part of that is, they're very, very on script. But when you ask a question they're not prepared for, gosh, you can see the shallow depth of either life experience or intellect or care and compassion. And for us, like we often all have concerns about the way the finances of the state and how this money, Victorians' money is managed, and then also the waste of projects. But we can then turn around and say, what do we get for our community? Because we know what our community wants, and we don't need talking points for that.
Exactly.
We already know. We know it in our heart and head what our community needs, and it's really interesting when you have that life experience.
Yeah.
Can I remind you of that next time you stand up in the chamber? Can I remind you, mate, you know all this. You don't need all those talking points. You don't need, because you can. And Annabelle's great on her feet, but gets so nervous.
Yeah.
So nervous. And, like, if you just spoke like that in the chamber, I mean, your reels would be really good. But, anyway, we'll work on that. As the whip. I don't know whether I've got any
Speak
advice.
what you're passionate on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting what you were saying, like the life experience thing is another thing. When I had the conversation with Peter, I said to him, well, I don't know about like state politics. I'm not an accountant or a lawyer. And he said to me, good, because there's enough of those in politics. You've got heaps of life experience and that's what we need more of. And I reckon I was like, Righto, let's go. Yeah.
No,
But you've sledged, maybe not in front of the microphone, journos, which is my background a couple of times.
Journos, you're a different breed.
Yeah, right. But for me, I have actually felt like that is my safety blanket in this job, because I find it, this could come back and bite me, but I actually find it quite a nice protection to think that I don't have Annabelle Cleland MP is not Annabelle Cleland, and the MP side of it is what does my community need? And that's the whole journo, like interviewing everyone. Like there's very little policy or legislation I'd speak on that I haven't interviewed people in my community that are impacted, and then I quote that. And for me, it's like nice to think that this is what my community needs, and I think that they're the skills from journalism and storytelling that have helped me be tougher in this job, because it's not personal.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't sledge journos. What I'm saying is having journos around obviously is great and we need them. What I'm saying is we also need marketers to market our brand.
No,
and that's our next episode. Because we'll talk for half an hour on that. But I will let you go because we have to eat and then get back into state conference. So go eat. Thank you both.
Thank you.
If people want to join the Young Nats,
they can go to vic.nationals.org.au.
Perfect.
And I'm pretty sure there's a banner at the top. You can sign up online. It's $10 and we'll get you involved. It's great.
And you get to come to things like state conference, which I know some people will roll their eyes, but I love state conference, particularly the Friday night. It's good fun. And
so Friday nights we have a big dinner and drinks, and it's all great. It's all good to catch up with family after year. Saturdays we all go have dinner in town somewhere, and even federally we have our federal conference once a year, and it's great catching up with everyone from around the country. Normally it's always in Canberra. We normally end up at a karaoke bar somewhere being paid for by someone, but it's glorious. So everyone should get involved.
Or by our federal leader.
Yes.
Thanks, David. All right, beautiful. Thanks so much, both of you. Really appreciate your time.
And your stories.
And your stories.
No, that's really nice.
Fantastic. Thanks, both of you.
Cheers.
In the heart of the nation where laughter's the key, Nat has the podcast, join the revelry, taking the Mickey with positive spin. Country folks unite, let the Nat chat begin. Nat chat where the laughter's free, spinning tales about politics with positivity.